Okay. So hi, everyone. I'm Katarina Hanssens Carlsson, CEO of Destiny International 11 and founder of two educational foundations, um, Teachers World, Teachers Hero, and Global Leadership Schools. And I have with me today Kimberly Gaughan, who's originally from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. And she is the owner of Star Students and is an expert in homeschooling. Is that correct, Kimberly?
That sounds about right. Thank you for the introduction.
You're very welcome. And so today we're going to be talking about what we think is missing in school education. And you're an expert in homeschooling. What do you think, Kimberly, is missing in public school education?
Oh my goodness. I mean, there's lots. If I had to pick just one or maybe two, the list is endless. But if I had to pick maybe just one or two, I would say that one of the biggest things that's missing in public schools is the sense of creativity, really. When you think about public schools, the way that they're designed, they weren't designed for freedom of expression. They weren't designed for inquiry-led learning, and they weren't designed for student-based learning either. And I see that as a real problem. I see that as one of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now, and have been facing, to be honest, since public school since its inception. I've seen that as the biggest problem.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic answer. It's to do with creativity. Children come into school at 98% creative intelligence, and by the time they're teenagers, it's down to 12%. So 98 to 12, it's not working. It's not working.
And that to me says there's a larger issue at work, right? That sort of drop in statistic, right? If you have a very good point, and if I just might interject here, you're right. When children come into public school at the age of sometimes 3, most often 4, sometimes 5, they are full of life, they're full of creativity, they're full of excitement, they're full of wonder, full of questions, right? The idea is that toddlers and young children always ask these questions of why. By the time they leave school, they're done. Like they don't have any enthusiasm for learning. They don't have any desire to do any sort of learning. And they don't have any sort of motivation to do so either intrinsic motivation or extrinsic motivation, because as a society, that's not something that we have, unfortunately, that's not something that is put at a high value in a lot of communities.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just want to refer to public schools. In England, public schools are private and private schools are public. So
okay.
but we're talking about American public schools and world public schools and state schools in England. So so what do I think is missing in school education is autonomy.
Yes.
Yeah. Is emotional and financial autonomy. So children need to learn about themselves, who they are, what their strengths are, what their brilliance is, what they could do later in life, what their fullest potential is. So they need to know that before they leave school. They need to know how to handle money before they leave school.
Yes,
so
100%.
Those are two things. So education needs to be much more child-centered, not just this is the curriculum, sit down, shut up, take it in, and then you're going to be tested. I mean, that's the system right now, but the children are not relating to it because they don't know who they are yet, and they don't know what they want to be up to in life. And I should correct that, because up to the age of 7, children know exactly who they are and what they want to do in life. And that's wonderful. Yes. But there needs to be entrepreneurship in that case from the age of 7. There needs to be a brilliance profile for each child. What are their strengths? We're not really interested in their weaknesses. Let's focus on their strengths. So
Right.
that's what I would like to
Right.
change.
I totally agree. The concept of the banking model of education, that's exactly what you're referring to when we put children in a public school, regardless of where it is. I definitely see this in North America because that's where I'm. That's the educational institutions that I'm familiar with are the North American ones, so Canada and the US. And they very much run on a banking model of education in which you treat children as essentially empty banks, where they come to school and, like you said so succinctly, sit down, shut up, do the textbook work, right? Or whatever is in front of you, assuming that that child has no other anything to them and that they're an empty slate to be filled. People aren't like that, and children don't come like that, right? And unfortunately, the public school system has not been designed for any sort of methodology of teaching beyond the banking method, right? In any sort of effectiveness, really.
Absolutely, Kimberly.
Mhm.
All right. So the next question is, what are the solutions? What solutions do you have, Kimberly, for child-centered education?
Well, I mean, if I'm being honest, and I'm sure I'll speak to the more radical listeners who are listening to this, if it was up to me and I had a choice and I could run the education globally, I would say that you should pull every kid out of public school and you should be able to make a child-centered education, individualized education specifically for them. Whether that's homeschooling, whether that's unschooling, whether that's some sort of community learning, or whether that's a mix of all three, or something completely different, right? However, that the system and the world at large is not ready for that sort of step yet. I realize that. So that's my optimist thinking, my dream world, right? And the ideal scenario that I see. In terms of perhaps a little bit more practical steps to get there, I think that in terms of a solution to talking about public schools, I really, at Star students, I do, and my teachers do as well. For those children who are still in the system, we really encourage the parental involvement. Even for those children who are not in the system. Now, for those who are not in the system, parents tend to be more involved in the first place, with homeschooling and unschooling, and things like that. But people who have children who are in the public system for whatever reason, every family is different. Every family has a variety of different lifestyle factors and whatnot. We really encourage parental involvement. And I think that that's the first step, because when the parents become involved, actually genuinely involved and interested in what their kids are learning, and they collaborate with the teachers, they collaborate with public school teachers who are there, and who are, for the most part, willing to help your children, right? People don't go into teaching because well, I would hope not, they don't go into teaching to harm children or because they don't like children. So given a normal circumstance of a teacher that is there who's willing to work with the parent, and parents who are there who are interested in their child's education, who are taking a valid stance and being their child's advocate, I think that parental involvement can be something that really benefits both the parent and the child, as well as the teacher, because you have to think about it. Public school teachers have depending on where you are in the world, anywhere from 25 to 40 kids in a public school classroom. They're only one person and they can't do it all. So having that parental involvement and that extra parental guidance and or assistance on the side, most teachers that I know really appreciate that. And they really like that. So I would say that's my first sort of step in a practical solution. You have to have the parents be involved in their kids' education. You cannot just hand your child over to a state institution and expect the state institution to raise your child to, like you said earlier, their fullest potential. It is not going to happen.
Very good. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
I don't know what you think about that. What are your thoughts? I kind of just ran with that.
Agree that parents have a huge role in shaping their children's lives. Now, many parents have an idea of what they want their child to do. And I think there's a certain danger in that. But if parents are trained, and it takes a certain training to observe their children, find out their strengths, what they love to do, what they do in their spare time, what they do at home, what they play with, who they play with. Parents can be trained to actually observe their children and then nurture their full potential. So parents play a huge role in it. So Global Leadership Schools has a training for parents to find their individual child's brilliance and then to nurture that, empower that, and talk to the school, talk to the teachers, say, this is my child, and this is what he, she wants to do. Or allow the child to say, hey, teacher, this is who I'm going to be in life. Help me to get there. So,
how do I get there?
Yes, how do I get there? Exactly. So we have trainings and consultations in exceptional leadership for principals, because principals guide the school. They're the number one person, and they need to have a great relationship with the teachers and with the students and know their names. And with this Brilliance Profile app, what they can do is they can have access to every child's brilliance and every student instead of their weaknesses. Instead of being problem focused, they will be brilliance focused.
Right.
Everybody has a brilliance. Everybody starts off in life with a brilliance. And what we need to do at schools is find it. So train principals, train the teachers, train the parents, and of course, train the students to find their own vision. What do I want to achieve in school and in life in 5 years' time? We should know that.
Yeah. And be able to facilitate it.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest thing, right? And I, people all the time, as someone who's very involved in the homeschooling world and whose business is very much focused on homeschooling, we also do provide supports for those who are in school as well, because the public school system will always be a thing until we as a society, as a global society, decide to change that. So we have supports for children who are in the system and children who are outside the system, as well as for parents, right? Because supporting the parents is a really big part too. But one thing that you mentioned that I really think is important is you mentioned the idea of and the programs and the trainings that you have, which I think are amazing opportunities for people to be able to, people who are within the system, within the public or perhaps the private school system, to be able to facilitate that sort of learning, or at least attempt to facilitate, right? My biggest sort of concern, I think, with the public schooling system is that when you have so many kids in a classroom, it becomes very difficult to have that sort of individualized help, right? So I think there's only so much that you can do inside of a classroom in a group setting, which is why I think it's great that you provide supports for parents too. That's why we also at Star Students provide supports for parents who are outside the system, because they need a little bit of additional help, right? And even inside the system, if their kids are in the system, what can you do as a parent to be more involved, whatever that situation may be, to be more involved and to be able to nurture your child's brilliance, as you said, right? Because everybody has it. It's just that it disappears because it's not nurtured properly, and you don't give kids the proper toolkits and the proper resources to be able to reach those heights that they should be reaching.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, you've got a very good point. When there's one teacher and 30, maybe 35 children in a room, it's hard to reach every single one. But in our trainings, it works, because we've already tested this in Swedish schools, and the children love it, because it's,
which is one of the things that I love about what you've done, is because you've tested it already and you know that it works. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Children loved it, especially the brightest children, the best achievers, let's say, academic achievers. And also, interestingly enough, the ones who don't like school, who don't understand school, who don't want to be in school, they also came to me and said, Katarina, can you come back and do this again?
Aww,
this is what
that's so cute.
School for. I haven't
Good.
actually come to school to learn science or mathematics or whatever. That doesn't interest me that much. But this is all about me and about my future. And I love it. Can we have more of this?
Amazing.
So
Yeah.
I meet them on the bus, these young students, and they say, come back. So
That's how you know that you've done a great job inspiring them, right? When they say, "Can you please come back?" When the students are
yeah,
asking you to come back, that's when you know that it's really means something.
yes.
That's amazing. That's good to hear. Awesome.
Yes. So your point of so many in the classroom, it works with the original training, but we are also training coaches who are not teachers. Coaches,
Gotcha.
external coaches to be Global Leadership Schools certified coaches to come into the school and follow up with the children in small groups of 4, for example,
Perfect.
or 6.
Yeah.
And these coaches will come in on a weekly basis to start with, and then on a monthly basis, and do follow up with every single student. So it works. It's a system that works. And what's great about it is the children thrive. They want to go to school. They get involved with projects, the entrepreneurial projects. They find out if they're a visionary or an organizer or a marketer, and they create teams and they cooperate together rather than compete.
Which is, I think, one of the more powerful things you can do. That's amazing. I know we've chatted before about some of your programs, and I really think that they're very well designed. I think they've been pretty well tested, and the results speak for themselves, right?
Thank you. Absolutely. That's
Of course.
okay. So Kimberly, how do we contact you? You're an expert on homeschooling. How do people contact you? Kimberly Gwen.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, we are a business that is completely online. We're 100% online services, whether that is with our homeschooling supports, or our tutoring supports, or the extracurricular supports for the parents. Either or any of those options are going to be online. And so I'm fairly active on social media. You can find me online at www.starstudents.co, not .com, .co. That's the website. All the contact information is there and everything. You can also Google Star Students, comes right up. I'm very responsive to emails, messages, and you can call anytime as well. I'm happy to have a conversation with parents who are looking to provide their children with supports outside of the public school system or inside the public school system, whatever's right for your family.
Thank you, Kimberly. And
Of course.
if you would like to find out more about our parental trainings, our school trainings, our principal, teachers, and coaching training or consultation, please contact me at LinkedIn at Katarina Hanssens Carlsson, as it says here. And you will find Destiny International there and Teachers Hero there and Global Leadership Schools, my foundation. So thank you so much for listening. By all means, contact Kimberly or contact me and focus on your child's, if you know a child or if you have a child, your child's brilliance, their full potential.